Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach and founder of the Confidence Academy Members Club, helping men and women just like you to build unshakable confidence and self-belief. Each week, I will be bringing you new episodes with advice and guidance to help you rebuild lost confidence, manage anxiety, and finally start living the life you were born to live. It is my aim to reach as many people as possible with the message that no matter what you're going through, no matter what your struggle may be, there is hope. And there is a way to create an amazing life for yourself. The incredible people I have been blessed to interview on the show are walking, talking examples of how this is possible. And I truly hope you will find their stories uplifting, inspiring, and motivational. The conversations are very open and candid and occasionally may include some adult language, so please take care when listening around little ones or grab some headphones. This podcast series is brought to you in association with Lily Badcock Confidence Coaching and the Confidence Academy Members Club. If you are ready to make the shift from anxious and frustrated to calm and confident, then visit www.lilybadcock.com today and get started with the free resources that are waiting there for you. I need you to know that you're not alone, that it can and will get easier, and that the transformation you seek is possible. You are more powerful than you know, and I'm here to teach you everything I know about harnessing that power and creating an amazing life on your terms. Before we dive in, don't forget to leave a review for us on iTunes and to check out the links in the podcast notes to the free resources we have available for you. But for now, let's get you on your way to living your epic life, free of anxiety and full of confidence. After all, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. Hello, welcome back to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lily Badcock, and today I am joined by the wonderful Altovise, who is, she said, looking at her notes, a podcaster, an author, a life coach, and a professional speaker. So Altovise, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be able to talk to you and your audience.
I'm so excited to have you on here. So I'm not going to give anything away in this introduction. I'm going to let you tell it in your words. So to everyone listening, Altovise, as I said, Altovise has a podcast. I'm sure we'll share about that later. And as things come up regarding the way that you work, we will obviously put those links in the show notes as well. So anything that you hear in terms of how you can work with Altovise, don't panic if you didn't get it written down, because we're going to pop it right there in the show notes for you. So Altovise, I understand that what you've come on here to talk about today is a subject that a lot of people would find very difficult to talk about and probably equally difficult to listen to. Am I right?
Definitely. So my experience is that I am a victor over molestation, as well as the mother of 2 teen girls who are victors over molestation. And what that means for me is that I've been able to handle what I went through and go back and help other women who have gone through the same situation. So when I say a victor, that's what it, in my mind, that's the definition that, best describes it. Literally, I did not tell anybody that I had been molested until 2015. And it happened when I was a child, when I was younger, but I never told anyone. For me, it was a time when I wasn't living with my mother. So I wanted to keep my mother safe, because she was a single mother. And at the time she was finishing up school while I was staying with family. And so I just never said anything. But who knew that not saying anything could be very damaging to me and how I felt about myself, how I spoke about myself, how I allowed other people to treat me. It all was directly, intertwined with going through that. And so years later, I have 2 young girls. I have my son and my 2 girls, and I find out that my 2 girls have been getting molested as well. And this is on top of me not talking about myself being molested, and now I have to go and help my girls heal. I have to go through court. I have to go through therapy sessions. I have to go through court school and doctor's visits and so many different things all at once. It reopened that wound of me being molested as a child, but because I had not told anybody, I really couldn't explain to them why I was so upset. I couldn't explain to them why the anger was coming out the way it was coming out. It just, it was unruly. It's interesting because you look at me and I'm such the giggle person, but in that moment, all bets were off. Everything was complete and utter turmoil. And
I can understand that.
It was definitely it was a journey that led me 2 states away, moving 2 states away with my children, having to restart my life completely in a place where I hardly knew anyone. The only person I knew was my aunt that I was staying with, and going through this whole process of trying to figure it out. And I think a lot of women and men that have gone through being through, molestation, rape, abuse, they have that period of trying to figure it out. I'm going to try to figure it out. The greatest lesson that I learned in that time was I didn't have to figure it out alone.
Yeah.
And I learned it in that time frame, but it was reiterated in 2015 when in a conversation with my oldest daughter, we were talking about trust, and I kind of blurted it out that I had been molested as well. Now, it was one of those moments where you kind of wish you could just kind of grab the words out the air before they kind of hit the person's ear. It was too late. It was out there. And in that moment, she, sat there and held my hand, and we kind of just cried in that moment because there was not really many words that could be said. And then we went back and, finished the conversation. And that literally was the snowball effect for me starting my own business. That was the snowball effect for me writing my first book. That was the snowball effect for me being able to now say that I've been working for myself full time. I left my job last year in May in 2017. So why did that snowball in such a way? I had a later conversation with my oldest daughter, and I asked the question. I was doing an interview, and I kind of snuck and had her on the interview with me. And I asked her the question. I said, "What is your most proud moment of me?" And, at that time I had become the certified coach and had the first book done. The second book was almost done. And I'm thinking she's going to say, "Oh, you're an author. My mom's a speaker." She said it was the conversation that I had with her. And it allowed her to know that she wasn't alone. Yeah. And so here it is. It all comes full circle. And I'm saying, okay, if me telling my story allows her to understand that she's not alone, then what will it do for another woman? What will it do for somebody who's following me, who may never speak up ever about what it is they've been through? What will it do for them? Because I'm able to give them, both sides of the spectrum, from the parent of the child as well as being the child myself.
Right. Yeah. You've literally had experience on both sides, which is awful. And I'm so sorry. And yet it's amazing that you've created this life mission. In fact, this is your life mission, isn't it? This is your purpose, and this is why you're here. And if your mind works the way mine does, then you can take it, and that's how you become empowered. I think that's how you it's not that it makes it okay by any stretch, but at least this is how you get your power back, because now you're telling your story and you are changing lives as a result. As you said, you're giving people their voice back. You're telling people that, that it's okay, that they're not alone, that it's okay to talk about it, and that there is someone else that's going to understand, even if they seem to be surrounded by people who maybe wouldn't understand. So I think, I take my hat off to you. I think it's absolutely amazing that you've found the strength to do that. So what do you attribute that strength to? What do you think, what was it that snapped in you that made you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, aside from everything you must be going through, even still, because if you only spoke about this 3 years ago, this has to still be very raw for you, because presumably it was like it happening all over again, because it was all, you know, it was all bubbling up again. So where did you get your strength from? What gave you that strength to do what you do?
So I have to say that the strength comes from my support system. The strength comes from those who have come along and said, I've in this journey, it's interesting because I go live on social media a lot. I do something called the morning press, where I go live in the morning and just give them motivation. I do my own podcast, and then, you know, so I'm always, you know, before people, even though I'm an introvert, check that out. Even though I'm an introvert, but I always get somebody who tells me, thank you for your transparency. And so I look back and I say, you know, every time I think that it's, oh my goodness, it's super hard, it's super strenuous, I don't know how I'm going to go forward, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, I'll have somebody who will say, thank you for what you've been doing. And I've even gone and done events where just recently I was in Indianapolis doing an event, and a woman came up to me and she said, you don't know me, but I've been following your journey for the last 2 years.
Wow.
She said it was your message in the morning. It was your motivation. It was your transparency that got me through the hardest time ever as I was taking care of my ailing mother. And when she passed away, I was able to get through it simply because of your transparency and because of what you were doing.
Wow. And that's so validating, isn't it, when you hear that from somebody? Because, you know, I'm going to veer off a little bit for a second, but, you know, just as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, it's so easy, isn't it, to feel like your message is falling on deaf ears and that there's crickets, you know, you don't seem to be getting the engagement that you want, and you feel like you didn't break through yet, and you question like what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then you hear from someone that, you know, because this has happened to me as well, and you'll suddenly hear that someone has been following you the entire time, and you just think, God, if you've been following me for 2 years, then you were listening when I thought nobody was. And, you know, and it's really validating as an entrepreneur to hear that, but how amazing for that person as well that you've been able to give that to them. And I think this is, as I'm doing more and more of these interviews, I'm just learning that I think that's the whole point of life. I just think, you know, we're all scrambling around on this funny little planet, and the point is there isn't any one person above another. It's just that people have their journeys, and what someone excels in, someone else is going to struggle with, and so that person can help. And then by the same token, that person that helped is going to have their own internal struggle. And I think, you know, when you realize that, you can let go of a lot of the shame that people feel, not just specific to what we're talking about today, but I think whatever your struggle is, there's an element of shame that comes with it, and an element of guilt, and an element of feeling like you're the only one, and then feeling stupid for feeling like that, and it goes round and round. And I think if you can, in your darkest moments when you feel like you have nothing together, if you can remember that to someone else you are the thing that's keeping them going. And by the way, you don't have to have a podcast to do that. You don't have to be a speaker or a coach or be on TV or anything. Like, you are that person to the people that are in your circle, even friends and family. So, and I think that's a really strong and powerful message that people need to hear, because right when you feel like you're most helpless and you're most hopeless, you are still an amazing source of inspiration to another person, and you can change the world even in that state. Which
it's interesting. In the beginning, when I first started, it was the hardest thing for me, because I am an introvert. You want me to do what in front of a camera? You want me to do what? And talk to people that aren't really there, but they're really there. That type of thing. Yeah, no, that's not scary at all. And so I started out on Periscope back 2 years ago, when Periscope, you know, was just getting going. And I actually became a VIP broadcaster on Periscope. And I would tell people, listen, I would go live even if it was just me and the little Perry person in the room. And that's the little head thing at the bottom of the screen. Like, even if it's just me in the room, I would still go live, because something that I've noticed, especially with video, and everything is going, everything goes viral at this point, right? Anything and everything can go viral. But with video is you never know who's going to watch the replay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And right now in life, we're living this life, but we forget that there's going to be somebody watching the replay. That means that, the decisions that we make, it's going to affect somebody else. There's somebody that's going to be paying attention to what it is that we choose to do. And in the moment, it may seem like, no, there's nobody watching. There's nobody paying attention. There's nobody that really cares. But as we go further along, you'll always get somebody that says, I remember when you did ... and things that you didn't even think people were paying attention to.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think I had somebody inbox me. It was like, oh my goodness, I used to follow you on Periscope. I loved your broadcast. And they were like asking me a question. And I was like, I don't even know who this person is.
Oh, no, you're so right though. You're so right. And that's exactly the point. And this is what's so amazing about the time we're living in now, because look at the support that we can give each other. I mean, I'm chatting to you right now. Where are you in the world?
I'm in Maryland, over in the US.
Yeah, so you're in the United States of America. I'm sat here in sleepy little Salisbury in Wiltshire, UK, and we are together putting out this podcast, which is being listened to in multiple countries. The other day, I looked at the list of countries that tune into this podcast, and it was the Republic of Congo or something, or the Republic something or other of Congo. I've not even heard of that. So I was like, I don't even know what that is. And there's people in China, there's people in Israel, there's people all over the world listening to this. And, I think that's the amazing thing about the time that we're living in right now, and how lucky are we on both sides of the coin. We're lucky that we get to spread our inspirational messages and that we get to help others. And aren't we lucky that we get to find those that can help us as well by the same token? It's, it's a massive network. And it goes both ways.
That's huge. Yes, that's huge.
Massive.
Being able to have that network and that opportunity of reaching people across the world. Because again, we often think what's going on in my little section of the world is different than what's going on somewhere else. Yeah. And that's not necessarily the truth. A lot of times we're going through very similar things, but we don't talk about it. So we don't know that what you're going through over in the UK is what we're going through over here in the US until we have that conversation.
Right. And so there was a couple of things that came up that I want to touch on. First of all, I want to go back a little bit to when, you said that this had happened to you in childhood, and then obviously you didn't share your experience until 2015, so 3 years ago at the time of this podcast going out. So what effect did that have on you, all those years that you lived with that? How did that affect you as a person, and how did that manifest in your life?
So what I didn't realize was that it affected me negatively in so many different ways. I had become the people pleaser. I had become the yes person because I wanted people to approve of me. I had this whole idea that I had to fit into everybody else's bubble. I had to fit into everybody else's box. And it wasn't until more recent years that I became a lot more comfortable with even just saying no to people. Even just being able to be comfortable in what it is that I know I can do and what I can't do, saying I can't do it and being okay with it. And so that self-esteem and is highly affected and intertwined with going through abuse, because you've been told that you weren't anything. You've been told that you're the lowest of lows, or, people will build you up just to break you down in some instances. And so you're going through all of these things, and it's hard, it's difficult. But I have to say that my story is not the extreme, because the extreme for those who have gone through abuse is drug abuse, it's suicide, it's cutting, it's being sexually promiscuous. Some become prostitutes and strippers, and like that's the extreme of, you know, those who have gone through abuse. A lot of times when you speak to women who are in those different scenarios, they'll tell you about some abuse that happened in their childhood. And it saddened me, because for my life, I didn't want to go to that extreme. But when it happened to my girls, I said, they won't be that statistic. And we kind of, you kind of like, okay, we're all some statistic. We are. And you can be a good statistic, you can be a bad one, you can be, you know, whatever, float your boat. But we are all some statistic. And I said, I did not want them to be that statistic. I wanted them to be the statistic of, you know, you get people that say they don't look like what they've been through. I wanted them to be that statistic that, you know, they were the opposite end of the spectrum, and, you know, that they were doing well. They weren't, you know, struggling with anything. And we've had to have conversations about how you allow people to treat you, and having respect for yourself, your self-confidence, loving yourself. Because even now, that's still something that they have to adjust and learn how to handle. And it's difficult because as a teenager, you already have enough to handle.
Like, I was going to say, like, those are issues that you go through anyway, aren't they? On some level.
So you're already struggling, and then you got all on top of that. So I love them, because every time I come in contact with someone who has been in contact with them, they tell me, your children, I love your children. I love them. I wish I could clone your children. Like, your children are so amazing. And just their spirit, just their personalities. I'm always pushing them to, and this is another thing. I found that for me, I took on everybody else's identity because I was uncomfortable in my own.
Right. Yeah.
So things like my favorite color, my favorite food, things like that, you take on other people's identity. And I had to break out of that, not just for me, but for my girls, because I had to make sure that they were strong and confident in having their own identity.
Right. Leading by example.
Exactly. And so that was a process for me, but I've been doing really well with it, because just a few weeks ago, my youngest daughter had a talent show, and she likes to dance. And so she choreographed the opening dance, and she was doing all these different things. And they did a little skit from Hamilton. And I mean, they were having so much fun. And so I said, okay, I'm so excited. I'm screaming and yelling. I probably won't have a voice tomorrow, because I'm that mom.
Yeah.
And she comes out on stage with another young lady with a ballerina outfit on. And I'm like, wait a minute. She doesn't take ballet. Wait a minute. She doesn't take ballet. And I watched her as she danced, and they did, like, it was more like a interpretive dance, a modern dance, but I just watched her on this stage in this ballerina outfit. And I said, wow, she didn't care what anybody had to say. She didn't care what anybody would think. And I can tell you, she had a blast. And it brought so much joy to me, because I said, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's the validation right there, isn't it? There's no greater. I suppose it's wrong in a way, but, you know, I'm the same. And I think a lot of parents would say the same, that you're more likely to step up into a role like that for your children, where you may not have stepped up for yourself. Yeah. So do you think, I was going to say, you know, obviously, because at the time you found out about your girls, at this point, nobody knew that you had been through this yourself. That's what you said, wasn't it? So how do you think, where do you think life would have taken you had it not taken that turn of events? How do you think, do you think that eventually you would have shared anyway? Do you think you were heading that way, or do you think you were resigned to an entire life of keeping quiet because that's what you felt you needed to do?
I think for me, it would have probably been the majority of my life I would have kept quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that there are more and more women who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s who have never told.
Yeah.
They've never told about being molested, raped, abused. They've never told about them being in an abusive marriage. They've never told. And because they've never told, other generations are going through it and not knowing that it's happened before and that you can get through it. They're not knowing that even in there, because it's interesting. I say it, I explain it in this way, that imagine going into your family's home and there's this box that has a bow on it on the mantle and it's just sitting there. And everybody knows the box is there, but you're not allowed to touch it. You're not allowed to talk about it, but the box is there, but nobody wants to talk about why the box is there. Like, that's what it is. When you think of low self-esteem, when you think of anxiety, when you think of all of the things that come along with what we've gone through in life, it's that box. That no one wants to talk about the mental health issues. No one wants to talk about these things. It's that box. You see it. You know that people are going to therapy. You know that people are having issues in their marriage, but it's still that box. And it's sitting there on the mantle and people don't want to talk about it.
And this is what I find this so curious about humans as human beings, that we all, regardless of what the issue is, whether it's something like you went through or whether it's, something like I went through, which was, just GAD, generalized anxiety, which I don't want to say just GAD because it can be really debilitating. But regardless of what it is that people are going through, we all don't talk about it because on some level we feel like we're the only ones. We feel like we're the outsiders. We feel like we won't be understood if we talk. I know for me, I feared judgment. I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought that because I work with children, I thought no one in their right mind is going to bring their child to someone who suffers with anxiety, because that's a mental health issue. And the minute you hear the word mental health, you just assume that they're going to snap at some point and not be able to do their job well or take care of the kids. So I feared that. I feared that I was going to burden people, all of this. And yet everybody feels that way. And yet everybody has something. Like everyone is dealing with something. It's like you said earlier, we're all a statistic of some description. And, and even for me, like with my anxiety, I even took on the thing of, well, I shouldn't really have anxiety. I don't even deserve that. Like I felt so not deserving of anything, and least of all that because I actually had a nice childhood growing up and I don't have any bad memories and I couldn't see why I had this issue. And so then I felt bad for that. And we're all wandering around with these issues, with these boxes, like you talked about with the big bows on, and no one's talking about it. And yet we're all working really hard to put on a mask to make everyone else around us feel better, when actually what that's doing is feeding the belief that they're the only ones going through it because everyone else looks fine. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's madness, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Like
you have like this highlight reel, especially on social media. We see all the good stuff. That's one of the reasons why I was so adamant about bringing back the morning press, because I've been transparent. And I tell people about the stuff that I do wrong. I don't do it all right. Everything doesn't go right. Everything doesn't feel right. Sometimes it's more of a push than others. And so I literally came and that was the discussion that we always have. And so even, this morning I was on there in tears, talking about some of the things that I've been going through with kinship care with my sister and that whole process. But it's difficult because you're still trying to have a life. You're still trying to have your family. You're still trying to have your business. You're still trying to work on all of these different significant things in your life. But if I turn on the TV, I see this highlight reel of somebody else who's living this lavish lifestyle, who's running around, throwing out money, left and right, who's buying a Lamborghini, and they're doing all these wonderful things. And I'm looking around going, I would like a Lamborghini, knowing that I really don't want one.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness. Yeah, no, you're so
I'm more of a Mustang, a Ford Mustang type of girl, with the convertible top. That's more me, not really a Lamborghini girl. But you see this highlight reel and you kind of start to daydream about being able to, oh my goodness, they drive and they do this. And it's interesting because I look at what is Chris Brown and Little Dicky did a video, a Freaky Friday. And I laughed because ultimately that is literally what everybody is going through, where you kind of just like, you love the lifestyle you have, but you kind of wish you had something else sometimes. You kind of wish you didn't have to go through the pain that you're going through. And, Chris talked about, wishing that he didn't have to go through, reliving his past every time somebody wanted to bring it up and, all of those different things. But we see that and you're looking at him and you're like, wow, that's really transparent, that you would say that. But a lot of people in the industry, that is how they feel.
Yeah.
That's really how they feel. They have cameras in their face almost 24/7.
Yeah.
You can't hide anything. We saw, people try to hide pregnancies and all types of other, you can hardly hide anything.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just wish that, okay, people were more transparent about what it is that's really going on when it comes to emotionally, mentally, what's really going on.
Yeah. And I think that there's two sides to it as well, because obviously talking about these issues brings comfort to people who are struggling on their own and who are feeling like they're on their own, because it lets them know that they're not on their own and that someone else gets it. And also in your case, and in the case of your girls, you are, I can't remember the word you used, but you said you were survivors, or you're like warriors of the thing that you've been through.
Victors. Yeah,
Victors, that was it. So it's a positive message, and it's for someone who maybe has just gone through it or maybe is going through it, to see that A, they're not alone, but also that B, they can be okay. They are going to get through it. They can get through it. It's possible because someone else is doing it. That's the thing. That's what's so good about sharing. But I think as well as that, there is healing for the individual as well. When we allow these emotions to come through us, and when we allow ourselves to actually look at what's happening, rather than grabbing onto it and trying to shove it into a little corner and pretend it wasn't there, when you actually live through it, as painful as it feels, you are healing in that moment. There's healing in that pain. And as much as you're helping other people, you're helping yourself as well. And I actually feel like it's crucial to do that, because I mean, they've done studies since, haven't they, about, physical illnesses you can get when you're holding on to some negative situation that you went through. There's a friend of mine who very sadly has got cancer, and it keeps coming back. And she has really looked into this idea of it's energy that has become stuck and stale. And so she's been doing a lot of energy work and a lot of holistic work around it. And as it currently stands, she's kicking its ass, which is awesome. But it just goes to show that there may be something to that. In fact, I 100% believe there is something to that. But I know that people listening are going to be of all different opinions. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to put an opinion on anyone or to say you have to believe this, you have to believe that. People find their strength in all kinds of things, whether it's medicine, whether it's religion, whether it's a book they've read, or whether it's energy work like that. I think the key, though, is to find that strength, whatever that means for you, and kind of batten down the hatches, gather the support around you, and then start to process whatever it is that has happened to you. so that you can heal, and then you can step up into your place in the world to serve others, which is, I think, why we're all here. I think we all came to learn and we all came to teach. And I often think, you know, that we go through these things and that's our journey, and it's part of us. It doesn't define us, but it is part of us. And so when you deny that, I think you're denying a part of yourself, and there's something in that as well that's not good for us. It's not healthy.
Definitely. I tell people it's kind of like I have a scar. You know, what I went through, what I endured, that's my scar. But there's still somebody who has that same open wound. And so where I have the scar, I can tell about the healing process for that particular scar, for that person that still has that open wound. And for them, it's fresh. You know, they just felt the pain. They just, you know, had the skin broken. But for me, it's healed. And even in the healing process, we go through a time where it irritates us. It's itching and it's like, I always like cringe for people that are walking around with a cast on because they're like, it's itching, and they're like trying to figure out how to scratch it and using all types of random things. But you're going through that healing process, whereas somebody else just went through that break. Somebody else just went through that pain. And even if, and this is the other thing that people always think about, they always say, you know, I can't talk about it because I don't feel as though I've fully healed from it yet.
Right.
That talking about it is a part of that healing process.
Yes.
But not only that, there's something that you've learned in where you are right now that you can teach somebody else.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I so agree with that. And yeah, exactly. We're all on these paths, aren't we? And I mean, I felt that as an entrepreneur. I get that as a person and as an entrepreneur. It's like you feel like it's this belief that, oh, I can't do that yet until I've got everything figured out myself. I don't get to teach about that until I've got everything figured out. And actually, when you think about it, it's a load of rubbish. Like when I was purely teaching singing, I didn't start teaching because I'd learned all the lessons there were to learn about singing. I had experienced enough that I could teach somebody else, and then my education was ongoing. I would continue to train. And even now, you know, I run my Confidence Academy. I help people who are struggling with anxiety specifically, and most of those people just happen to like singing because that resonates with what I do. But I'm still on my own journey. I still navigate anxiety. I'm still reading self-help books. I'm still taking programs. I'm still working with coaches and mentors. And I don't think we are done. I think life is the journey. Life is the experience, isn't it? And there is no done. That's the point. And if you're waiting to be done, you're going to be waiting a while because there's always going to be something else, you know? And that doesn't have to be a negative statement either. I think I see it as an exciting thing. I think I'd be very sad if I woke up tomorrow and somebody told me that I had learned all there was to learn about everything, because learning is what lights me up. It's what gives me hope. And on the days where I don't feel so zippy and happy, that knowledge that I still have things to learn is what gets me through, because that's when I will most likely turn on a podcast or reach for a book or, you know, go back to a program that I've done previously or something. I will go back to that education because I recognize now there's another lesson I get to learn. And to me, that's super exciting. So the other thing I wanted to highlight was the power of somebody sharing their story, because there's going to be people listening who maybe resonate with your story specifically. There are going to be a ton of people who haven't been through the same thing as you, but have been through something, because as we said, we've all got something. Why are you so passionate about people telling their stories, and what are the main benefits? So to anyone listening who has a story to tell, and we all have one, who is maybe nervous to do it or maybe doesn't think it's their place, what would you say to those people, and why are you so passionate about this subject?
So I have to say that part of it is people get nervous. When you talk about, oh, I'm going to tell my story, they think, oh, that means that they're going to be in a room of 1,000 people. That freaks anybody out. The number one fear in life is the fear of public speaking. But I always tell people, when you're telling your story, it may not be that you're telling your story to a room of 100 people. It may not be that you're telling your story to a room of 5,000 people. It could be that you're just telling somebody, one person. Before I got the book started, well, no, in the process of me doing the book, the first book took 8 years, and the first book was It's Okay to Cry. In the process of me doing the book, I would share my story with individual people. And I was seeing the change, I was seeing the impact it was having on the individual people that I was sharing it with. So we get excited because, you know, sometimes we want to share it with this whole big group, and we want to be able to say that we, you know, sat on Oprah's couch and did all these amazing things. But the reality is your story may just be for one person. And when I started out, before I did my first entrepreneurial business, it was just me telling people my story, telling individual people my story, getting comfortable and talking to a room of people where it might be 10 or 15 people in the room, my story. I did not know that that was preparation for me to be able to go into a room of 200 and tell my story. I did not know that that was preparation for me to go online and reach a couple hundred up to 1,000 people with my story. So telling your story is very important because there's always going to be at least one person that needs to hear it. And that one person may be someone you go to church with. That one person may be somebody that you go to work with. It may be somebody that you grew up with. It may be somebody in your own family. And that's the biggest thing, is we never know how deep and how wide this thing goes.
Yeah.
So I can share this story, and this story, I'm not going to cry, y'all. I promise I will not get emotional. But
I might.
in telling my story and writing my book, I had family members that were encouraging me and supporting me. And so there's 2 instances that happened within, you know, the last year. One was one of my aunts. She reached out to me. She's like, oh my goodness, you know, she's like, I'm so proud of you. She said, you make me want to write my book. I got excited. It was like, yes, come on, you could do this and do that. She said, wait. That I said I wanted to write the book, not right at this moment though. But I said, you know, you have this. And I supported her and I encouraged her. And then I had a challenge for one of my accountability groups for my online community, virtual community. And I said, we're going to write a book in a weekend. And she looked at me and said, you're crazy. And I said, no, Auntie, no, you can do this. You got this. Write it out, outline it, and just sit down and write. Just write out everything that you're thinking, everything that you're believing. Just write it all down. And she looked at me, her and a couple other women looked at me like I was crazy, but they accepted the challenge. So I'm not going to get emotional. She just recently published her 4th book.
Wow.
That's in-house. That's family. And then when it goes to the outskirts, it's even deeper. And so when I went through everything I went through with my girls, there was a good girlfriend of mine that I consider like a sister to me, who she had literally just finished law school. And she had called me, like, just on a whim. We had called each other, was talking, and I had said that, you know, she asked how the kids were. And I said, well, you know, I got court for them coming up. And she said, court for what? And, you know, we started talking, and she said, I'll be there. And she had to get special permission to be in the room because she was, you know, she had, you know, just gotten her law degree and everything. So she had to have special permission to be in the room. But she sat there with me. And it was the most powerful thing because she was able to explain every bit of what was going on in that courtroom to me.
Yeah.
Now, 2 weeks ago, I just had my first live event in Philadelphia, my first time doing an event in Philadelphia, where it was my event hosting it. And I had her come speak at the event. And I had a couple other ladies come and speak as well, one of them being one of my clients. And my client had gone through domestic violence, and she was currently in court regarding something with her ex-husband. Monday, now we had the event on Saturday. On Monday, she walks into the courtroom, and who's there? My good girlfriend that was in court with me when I was there for my girls. And she said she looked up, she saw my coach, she saw my client. My client, you know, they kind of made eye contact. She said, "You have court today?" She said, "I didn't realize your court date was today." So she had just finished what she needed to do for the day. So she stayed there with my client and was able to explain to her and her kids, you know, what was going on in the courtroom, what everything meant. And she, you know, she was that support system because my client also had to give a victim statement. And, you know, she called me, my client called me. I was just like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was funny because my good girlfriend said to me, my sister, she said, "If you had not have done that event, I wouldn't have known who she was."
Right. Yeah.
And she just would have been another woman walking into the courtroom with her kids. Never would have known.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. So to know that my story, sharing my story, connected me with my client and my good girlfriend sharing their stories connected them with each other. And then she was able to be a support for her that day that she needed it. It was, that blew me away. That day I was in tears all day.
Yeah, I got goosebumps when you said that, because that's the amazing thing about life, I think, that there are these synchronicities, and it's that snowball effect that of just one act of bravery on your part has now empowered other women to tell their story, and then to stand up and support other women who then in turn stand up, and now they're empowered as well. And it's like, this is how we're going to change the world. I fully believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I can see, you know, it is an emotional thing because it's so beautiful. And it's like, because when things like that happen, you realize, my God, we really are okay. Like, we really are looked after. Like, we really are, like, someone has our back. And whatever name you want to give that support, or, you know, everyone has a different word for it. And even people who don't think there is a support, I think you can't deny it when you hear a story like that, or when you witness it for yourself. Like, even the biggest skeptic would be like, oh, there's got to be something in that. There's got to be something in that. You know, it's an amazing thing. I wanted to just come back to, because you mentioned that your client had been a victim of domestic abuse. And I know I had worked with somebody in a similar situation, and this person is an amazing, amazing woman. Her story is phenomenal. And I have been saying for so long, like, I really think she needs to share her story. She needs to tell it. And I know for her, a lot of the fear is of digging it all back up, because she's got through it. I mean, this woman is an incredible person. And where she's at now, she feels like she's come out the other side. And her fear is that if she starts to write a book or anything like that, that she's going to reopen those old wounds, like the scars that she has that you mentioned are going to become fresh again. So what would your advice be to someone who's listening who maybe feels like that they know that they have a story, they know they could probably write a book or go and talk about it, but they have that fear of reopening old wounds? What would you say to those people?
So sometimes what I tell people is, I say, you know, when you're going through a healing process, imagine broken ankle and it's healed, but it hasn't healed to the best of its ability. What happens? They have to go and re-break it. It's not a situation that's ideal. It's not something that you don't want to say, hey, re-break my ankle. You don't want to do that. But in some instances, they have to re-break it because they want it to be as strong as possible. And sometimes we have to go back through that process, and it ends up making us even stronger. I tell people all the time, when you're doing it, it's not going to always feel good. My client was just fussing at me because I told her in the moment of, you know, her going through everything with court and everything, I said, record. I said, you don't have to go live, but I want you to, you know, turn your camera on your phone and just talk. What's your raw emotion right now? What we fail to understand is that a lot of time by us writing, we can go back and feel that raw emotion of that moment. And that's what connects with our audience.
Right.
It's the raw emotion. It's the pain that we felt in that moment. It's the fire. It's the fear. It's the tears rolling down our cheek that we felt in that moment. Now, I always tell my clients, it's you may not be able to write it out. Some people start writing and then that's it. They black out. They wake up and they curled up in a ball in the middle of the bed. I get it. I understand. Emotional triggers are going to be different for everybody. So I tell people that's not the only way that you can write a book. And so this is a great hack for some of you, is that record yourself. Just talk about the emotion. Talk about the moment that you went through. Talk about the experience, because you can always have somebody transcribe that, and then you have your book. And then you still have put the information out there. But sometimes that connection with some people trying to write it out, it does not work well. I've come across people that it just did not work well. I have some people, they have to type it on the computer. They can't write it by hand. I have some that work better with writing it by hand. But if you feel as though trying to write or type it is going to be too strenuous emotionally, I say, think about a moment, a pivotal moment. And some people go live on social media and talk about it. You don't have to do that. You can just record it in your phone. But as you collect those, you can send that to not to a publisher. You send it to a transcriber, and then you can. That's your book. That's your workbook. That's your journal. That's definitely what you can offer the world.
Yeah, and I imagine, you know, it's silly to say, oh, it's not going to be painful, you know, going back over that, it's going to be a doddle. Of course it's not. It is going to be painful, and not everyone's going to feel prepared or willing to do that, and that's fine. I say to people all the time, you do you, you know, you tune into your intuition, tune into your gut and do what feels good for you. But I would imagine that when you do that, as much as it can feel raw and painful, when you start to get those messages like you mentioned from people saying, oh my God, you've changed my life, or you've really helped me, then there's a little bit of healing in that. And then I think when you start to teach others what you know, you're teaching yourself as well. This is what I've found personally. I will be coaching somebody on their situation, and as I'm talking, as the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, this message is for me. Like, it's almost like I'm not talking. It's like someone is talking through me, and I'm healing myself at the same time. It's profound when that happens. But I think, you know, there's a saying, isn't there, that we teach what we most need to learn. And I think that's really true. I think in teaching it, you know, you do it even with kids, don't you? If you want a kid to really learn something well, you get them to teach somebody else about it, because then it solidifies it in their mind. Exactly. So there's real power in that. Oh my goodness, I feel like we could have gone for hours and hours and hours on this subject. And there's so much more to this. So if people would like to connect with you, either to read your books or to find out how they could work with you, or maybe follow your podcast, what's the best way for them to reach you online? And we will put these links in the show notes as well.
So you can reach me. I'm at Find Your Voice Now on social media. That's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, all across.
All the social medias.
Right, all the social medias is at Find Your Voice Now. If you want to connect with me directly and get on my calendar, you can go to bit.ly/talk to Altovise. If you feel as though it's your time to tell your story, it's time for you to find your voice, I definitely would love to go with you through that process and determine what it is you want to do when it comes to finding your voice, but also to find your unique story and be able to share it out with the world.
Amazing. And just to wrap up, if you had a megaphone and the ability to reach every anxiety sufferer in the world right now, what would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that you are unique and it's okay to be unique. Something that people often laugh at me about is that I giggle a lot, but my giggling, my smile has been what has gotten me out of a lot of situations, is being able to smile. I'm that person that will sit down and watch a funny movie when things get too stressful. I'm also that person that loves unicorns. I'm sitting here now and I have like my emergency charger is a unicorn. And so it's okay to be quirky. It's okay to be different. And don't allow that to be part of the reason why you have anxiety. Don't think that everybody fits into this perfect size 2 glamorous lifestyle. It doesn't work that way. The lifestyle that you have, you can create it and recreate it, but be comfortable in who you are.
Yeah, beautiful message, and it's so true. Thank you so much, Altovise, for being here on my podcast. I've loved listening to you, and I wish you all the very best with everything that you're doing moving forward. And to everybody listening, please do reach out. I'm going to be inviting Altovise to join us in the Facebook group that goes along with this podcast. So if you want to join us over in there, then you guys can tag Altovise in any of your questions, or you can tag me and I can pass them along. But let's get the conversation started over in that Facebook group as well. And it just remains for me to say a massive, massive thank you to you once again for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I definitely had a great time talking to your audience.
Awesome. And to everybody listening, remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it. I'm going to be back again with another episode really soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.
And that's us done for another episode. I hope you are now feeling uplifted, inspired and motivated and ready to start making those positive changes starting today. To get you started on your journey, I've created the Confidence Academy Members Club. This is an online resource designed to teach you everything you need to know about thriving in spite of anxiety, building unshakable confidence, and creating life on your terms. As a member, you will have access to weekly coaching calls with me and online trainings to help you manage your anxiety, overcome stress, and build confidence. Each month, we host a members-only masterclass with a guest expert from the podcast, giving you the opportunity to access world-class trainings and techniques for a fraction of the cost. For more information, head over to lilybadcock.com or hit the link in the show notes below. In the meantime, I'll be back again soon with another new episode and more amazing guest experts. But until then, look after yourself, dream big and live bigger. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it.